Back in 2010, a young, starry-eyed gamer by the name of Nick asked his parents to drive him to the local Best Buy. After a year of saving up money from chores and a recent birthday, Nick purchased an Xbox 360 along with a copy of Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. Of course, that child is yours truly. Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 was a pretty important game for me. I had been playing games like Ocarina of Time and Crash Bandicoot for years prior, but Modern Warfare 2 ushered in a new era of gaming. It came at a time where I had begun to realize that I had a real passion for playing video games. I started looking at them and playing them differently than I ever had before. And with this fancy new box of circuits and plastic to play games on, I remember it was the first time I had ever really played games online with other people. I still remember the weird sensation I felt when saying hello to Shane for the first time after joining an Xbox Live party chat. But beyond the new age of the 7th generation consoles, the Modern Warfare trilogy marked a period in my gaming life. Every time a new game was announced, I got excited to see what over-the-top set pieces would be blowing up in the campaign, what new kill streaks and maps would be added to the multiplayer, and what was next for the story of Captain Price and team. Eventually, like most things, that excitement faded, and by the time Modern Warfare 3 had released, that marked the end of my interest in Call of Duty for a long time. I had seen the progression towards futuristic settings, which at the time I thought seemed tacky and lame, as well as the nagging feeling that I wasn't seeing anything truly new being added or iterated on in the series. It was just going to be another rage-inducing multiplayer shoot fest with $20 DLC map packs. And as the series went further down this path, we saw less and less of an emphasis on the single-player campaigns, arguably my favorite aspect about the Modern Warfare trilogy. Sure, it's not revolutionary by any stretch, but it was by no means bad, and there are still several moments from each title that stick out vividly in my mind. So to say that Activision and Infinity Ward would announce a reimagining of the Modern Warfare series in 2019, that was a surprise to say the least.
Going dark.
Rumors began floating around earlier this year that Activision had shown off Modern Warfare to a small group of people, eventually leading to a number of gaming news outlets claiming that they had heard similar information, that the next Call of Duty was indeed to be set in the Modern Warfare series. At first, not seeing anything beyond rumors, this left me conflicted. It's been 8 years since the Modern Warfare trilogy ended. They tied up the story pretty well, and it seemed that the industry had moved on beyond the Modern War setting, leaving behind games like Medal of Honor and Battlefield 4 in favor of games like Overwatch and Doom. But taking a look at the sales trajectory of the Call of Duty series over the past 10 years, we see that the series saw its height in terms of sales numbers at the release of Modern Warfare 3. The series has since been on the decline. It begins to make sense. Activision wanting to breathe life into its declining series will cash in their nostalgia card and take things back to when Call of Duty was the king of the industry, when Call of Duty dominated the conversation. We've seen this before. Guitar Hero and Tony Hawk. A few months go by, and on May 29th, 2019, a teaser video is posted by the Call of Duty Twitter account that confirmed the existence of a new Modern Warfare. The next day, a teaser trailer is dropped. The teaser showcased in-game footage of Captain Price and his Bravo team in a forest under the cover of night, accompanied by dialogue suggesting that the rules have changed, and that there is a fine line between right and wrong. No doubt lines reflecting themes of the game. We are then shown a series of images of night vision, breach and clearing, moments of revolt, and armed conflict in Middle Eastern-looking countries and nuclear/chemical weapons. At the time, what was interesting to note was at the end of the teaser, the title was revealed to be Call of Duty Modern Warfare. No 4 in sight. But we saw Captain Price smoking his signature cigar. Is this a continuation, or are we rebooting the franchise? But it can't be a reboot, because at the very end, we hear Price say,
"Who's your team?"
Some old comrades.
no doubt referencing other returning cast members. Either way, this teaser had piqued my curiosity. The visuals impressed me, and it made me think about my attachment and history with the Modern Warfare brand. And overall, it had me thinking about Call of Duty in a way that I just hadn't been thinking about in nearly a decade. And that's not to say that Modern Warfare hadn't infiltrated its way back into the gaming sphere already. Call of Duty 4 Remastered has since popped back up. I made a backlog review sharing my thoughts on it a while back. I loved a lot of the technical improvements they made to the original campaign, and disliked a lot of the changes that they brought to the multiplayer. But that had gotten me excited for Modern Warfare again when I picked that up. Then all the news outlets start reporting on behind closed doors demonstrations that they were all shown at Infinity Ward. This is when I started to get truly excited about the prospects of the game. One big piece of information I learned during this time was that several members of the original Infinity Ward team, who had since moved on, were coming back to the company to work on this title. For those who are unaware, Infinity Ward saw a massive transformation after the release of Modern Warfare 2. Several developers had decided to leave to find work at other studios or create their own, which is the case of Vince Zampella and the Respawn team, who went on to make the Titanfall series and who are now in the news for Apex Legends and Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, and a recently announced Medal of Honor VR game. After all these developers moved on, there was a notable drop in quality from the Infinity Ward developed Call of Duty titles, which included Modern Warfare 3, Ghosts, and Infinite Warfare. So to hear that a number of the original team members wanted to come back and sort of take back the series that they made so popular is a promising thing to hear. If anybody knows how to capture the sensation of the original titles, it's probably the people who created them in the first place. So the gaming press got to see a demo that showcased a lot of new technical features of the game, including a revamped sound design, a new lighting engine, a graphical overhaul, and many other things. All quality of life improvements and technical enhancements that sounded great and would be expected of a new release in a long-running franchise. More importantly, they were shown 2 missions from the campaign. Apparently, these missions showcase not only a new focus on creating realistically proportioned environments, something new to the series, but also a focus on creating narratively rich and morally ambiguous scenarios for the player to sort through. Stories of playing as a little girl in a bombed-out house being stalked by an occupying soldier, along with breaching a room as a soldier and seeing an enemy hold a woman as a human shield, who, when she was freed from the enemy's grasp, moved to the side in order to grab a weapon of her own to turn on you once again. This is what sucked me in. At the time of writing this video, we've still seen very little of the campaign. Infinity Ward is being very open about the multiplayer aspects of the game, but very tight-lipped about the campaign, which makes it even more captivating and enticing in my mind. Multiple people have brought up the enduring legacy of the infamous No Russian mission from Modern Warfare 2, and I've noted how the team is looking at designing missions that evoke similar moral conundrums, as well as pulling reference for scenarios from the headlines of today in order to create the campaign. At this point, my thoughts are cautiously optimistic. I'm not yet sold on it, but I need to see more. Then after a relatively light E3 presence, August 1st rolls around and the multiplayer reveal trailer is released. What begins as a somewhat dramatic military entrance swiftly changes gears as the night vision goggles come on and the Metallica song Enter Sandman begins to play. What ensues on screen is a montage of multiplayer gameplay, guns firing, kill streaks going off, squads moving into position, all to a very strong heavy rock beat.
Target locked. Rifle 1-1 on approach. Multiple targets sighted. Raining fire.
You may be wondering why I note the music here. This is the first of several important themes that will be carried over and adapted from the original trilogy beyond the typical visual iconography of the Modern Warfare series from the teaser trailer, beyond night vision goggles and Captain Price's mustache. In my mind, Modern Warfare multiplayer was characterized by the hard rock music sting that would play upon ranking up. Many people poke fun at it nowadays, but it is a piece of audio identity that goes right along with the very concept of Modern Warfare. And hearing it in this trailer evokes feelings of nostalgia, even though what we are hearing and seeing is completely new. Throughout the trailer, we see a number of weapons, the new aesthetic that is elevated by the lighting engine that they're showing off, but the big thing that stood out to me was the pace. At this point, with the exception of Call of Duty World War II, Call of Duty had been increasing in franticness, attributed in part to the drastic redesign to mobility as a result of adding dashes and jump packs and wall running, etc. The game just played at a faster, twitchier rate. Here we see everyone on the ground, running or sneaking into gunfights, and everything just seems a little slower. But it's not slower in a bad way. Another way that they dig up nostalgic feelings of the prior Modern Warfare titles is through the gameplay bucking the trends of the recent iterations from other studios. It just seems to play like an older Call of Duty. And serving as the period on the trailer, a tactical nuke is dropped on the map, a gameplay concept that never really left the Modern Warfare identity, tying the old and new together. If my writing didn't already give away my thoughts, I'll say them now. I really enjoyed this trailer. Infinity Ward succeeded. They played all the nostalgia cards right, blending old and new without it feeling cheap or phony in an attempt to cash grab on the popularity of the Modern Warfare brand. To me, based on the gameplay trailers we've seen to this point, it looks like a Modern Warfare game that would have been released back during the height of the series' popularity. There is a certain air surrounding these trailers. The word I would use to describe the sensation is confidence. The team knows what kind of game they are making, and they're confident that they have something special here. I feel it, and I wonder if others feel it as well. Then comes the PlayStation 4 exclusive 2v2 gunfight alpha test. Naturally, being excited for the game and owning a PS4, there is no way that I was going to pass up on being able to play the game early. During my time with the alpha, my thoughts became mixed once more. I marveled at the graphical overhaul. The game looks seriously good, forgiving the texture pop-in and other associated bugs due to it being an alpha build. These animations were smooth and snappy. The choice to reuse the old weapon switching sound effect was a nice touch to further sell my mind that I wasn't just playing Call of Duty, I was playing Modern Warfare. The guns popped and boomed with satisfaction, and the introduction of this new 2v2 mode was interesting new ground for Call of Duty, harkening back, for me personally, to the 3v3 mode introduced in Modern Warfare 3, a mode I played a good bit with my friends back in the day. But the more I played, the more I grew frustrated. I was reminded of the hours of yelling at the TV and cursing the players who somehow were able to shoot me from around the corner before I even saw them. Then the game just started not to feel right. I would run around the small maps and would ultimately get caught vaulting over objects and being shot mid-animation. Several moments I would be killed in one shot, and in a mode where all you have is one life, it can feel infuriating to have that happen to you. Overall, I liked what I saw on screen, but I was left wondering, what if this game just treads similar ground as before? What if the same rage I felt back in 2010 will resurface with Modern Warfare 2019? What if in an attempt to go back to what made the series great, they inevitably regress and make a game that just isn't fun to play? Or what if I just can't enjoy Call of Duty anymore? But I didn't want to completely write off the game yet either. After all, it is just a 2v2 mode with limited weapons and 1 life rounds. In other words, not something I would typically play on my own. So I decided I would reserve my judgment until I could get my hands on some of the larger scale modes. Then I could get a better idea of my thoughts on the game. Which brings us to the weekend of September 14th through the 16th, in which the open beta for the game was made available for PlayStation 4 players. After playing in this beta until rank 20, approximately 5 hours, I've rebounded once more. I had a very enjoyable time with the larger scale modes. Team Deathmatch, Domination, and other modes like Gun Game and NVG, a Night Vision exclusive game mode, were all fun to experiment with and to play on larger maps, and with more people. And let's talk about the maps for a minute. The thing I noticed immediately is that the maps are designed in such a way that it forgoes the contemporary 3-lane approach that has been popular in several new Call of Duties. The maps that were playable in the beta had so many different paths and buildings to move between, and as I just touched on, they didn't feel like templates. More or less, they just felt like locations. This is something that is consistent with the older Modern Warfare titles. When I think of Modern Warfare in regards to the maps, I think of maps like Crash and Crossfire from Call of Duty 4, Afghan, Terminal, and Favela from Modern Warfare 2. These maps are often multi-tiered, and they have very specific and memorable locations like the cliffside on Afghan or the downed helicopter on Crash. These maps never felt traditional to play on, so I'm glad that it seems like the team is again borrowing from these legacy titles when it comes to map design. I noticed even more little carryover touches from the original games. Little touches like being able to double tap the square button to detonate C4. I mentioned the reuse of the original sound effects on switching weapons and ammo pickup, even down to money flying out of players who die by a headshot. All of these little details mix so effortlessly with the new enhancements they are bringing to the forefront. Kill streaks have returned in that they require a successful string of kills in order to obtain. The support streak system that rewarded players even if they died while building their streak is seemingly gone. There are a number of familiar and new streaks that feel as satisfying as ever to obtain. Many weapons now have select fire modes, being able to switch between fully auto and semi-auto, a nice touch that was missing from the original titles. The weapon customization has been massively overhauled. There weren't many options included in the beta, but coming from people who saw the behind closed doors demos, apparently there are many different combinations of attachments that all give positive and negative effects, which can make weapons behave drastically different. Playing on the larger, more varied maps allowed me to really hear the improvements to the audio design. Everything sounds great and adapts to your surroundings, i.e. firing a gun in a field as opposed to in a building. This will probably fade as you play the game more, as in you won't really recognize it, but still, nice improvements all the way around. While I did get frustrated occasionally during the beta, it never felt like it was that big of a deal because respawning was so quick. Final kill cams also make a return, which is nice to see. Everything comes together in such a strong way. The game feels new and tight based on all the new improvements, yet it truly does feel like it belongs at the same lunch table as the original Modern Warfare trilogy. And this is coming from just the multiplayer. Then a second beta comes around, testing crossplay between PlayStation, Xbox, and PC, in addition to adding Ground War, which has been massively changed. For the first time in the series' history, they have 32 v32 battles and drivable vehicles. It's basically a battlefield mode inside of a Call of Duty. This was the kind of innovation and changing of the formula that I was looking for in Call of Duty that I never really got the sense of with the newer iterations. This feels like it's different. It is new, it's breathing life into this game, but it feels at home in the Modern Warfare brand. No, Ground War didn't play perfectly while I was playing it, but again, it's a beta. They have time to work on it and iterate on it, and you hope that it's a little bit better whenever it comes to the full game. All in all, over the past year, my thoughts in regards to the 2019 Modern Warfare have rose and fallen much like a roller coaster. Some decisions at the time felt weird and conflicting. I found myself asking why, and saying things like, well, I guess they got bored with the future, so it's time to go back to what everybody liked. But after all I've seen and all I've been able to play, I gotta say, I'm impressed. This feels like a sequel to the Modern Warfare trilogy, taking the best aspects of the originals and injecting a bunch of new features. I can really sense a change in the design and overall attitude of this game from the way it has been advertised to the way it plays. And for the first time in nearly 7 years, I can say that I'm excited about a new Call of Duty release. And during Sony's recent State of Play, they showed off the campaign story trailer. The cutscenes that they showed off looked really impressive, again highlighting the visual improvements they made to the game. The gameplay looks to be great, and you really get a sense of what those initial previews were talking about setting up these morally ambiguous situations. At a lot of points in this trailer, it does seem a little corny and Call of Duty, but I guess that's to be expected. One thing that I can't say that I'm adapting too well is the look of Captain Price. When you see him in profile, he looks fairly similar to the original Captain Price, but this shot in particular, I don't know, it's just something about it doesn't look like Captain Price. It looks really weird, and I can't really get over it. But overall, the campaign looks interesting, by far the biggest part that I'm excited about. But that said, I'm sold on the gameplay, and if they can deliver on an emotional and impactful campaign, then I can see this being one of my favorite shooters to have come out in a long while. What do you think? Am I overanalyzing everything? Are you excited for Modern Warfare 2019? Is it a return to greatness or a desperate move to capitalize on nostalgia and prior success? Let me know down below. Check out some of our other videos, and thanks for watching. See you in the next one.